Yoo yakam jirtu maatiin kun akkaadaamii baga nagaan gara yuutuubii keenyatti nagaan dhuftanii ani barsiisaan Naggasuu Gurbeessaan jedhama. Histirii kutaa 12ffaa isin barsiisuudhaaf dhiyaadheera. Kanaaf unit 1 development of capitalism and the nationalism from 1850 to 1914. So the main point of the main subtopic of unit 1 development of capitalism and the industrial revolution we will see under part 1. So under Unit 1, development of capitalism and the nationalism from 1815 up to 1914. For Unit 1, our starting point is 1815. Kanaaf ka'umsi keenya Unit 1 irratti bara 1815 bara 1914 ilaalla. What happened 1815? 1815 means Vienna Congress in world history. 1914 means outbreak of the First World War. So, under Unit 1, we will see world history from the Vienna Congress of 1815 up to the outbreak of the First World War in 1914. So, under Unit 1, Part 1, development of capitalism and industrial revolution. Kanaaf Unit 1 ila Part 1 kan laallu development of capitalism and industrial revolution wali ilaalla. The main subtopic or content is of Unit 1.1 development of capitalism. Under this subtopic, you will learn the definition of capitalism, what is capitalism mean, how and when capitalism started, and the main features of capitalism. We will see under the first subtopic of Unit 1. Kanaaf asirratti kan waliin ilaallu capitalism maal akka ta'e, amala capitalism yoom akka jalqabe, akkamitti akka jalqabe in detail waliin ilaalla. The second subtopic of Unit 1 is the industrial revolution. What industrial revolution mean, how it was started, and the main factors for the beginning of industrial revolution, and the outcomes of industrial revolution. Kanaaf industrial revolution maal akka ta'e kasam isatti akka jalqabe yoom akka jalqabe akkasumas immoo bu'aa inni fide waliin ilaalla. The third subtopic of Unit 1 is nationalism. What is nationalism? When and how it developed, and the positive and the negative consequence of nationalism waliin ilaalla. Kanaaf nationalism yookiin immoo inni afaan Oromootiin sabboontummaa jennu kun maal akka ta'e isatti akka jalqabeedhaa fi bu'aa maalii qaba, positively, negatively bu'aa inni fidee dhufe ilaalla. Again, the outcome of industrial nationalism led to unification of Italy and Germany, peace and together. Somewhat the positive consequence of nationalism. Case of nationalism in negative consequences qaba, positive consequences qaba. Kanaaf positively it affected Italy and Germany, to lead to unification of Germany and Italy. Kanaaf akka beektoonni jedhanitti unification of Italy and Germany ni bu'aa nationalism jedhama waan ta'eef. Kanaaf under nationalism we will see unification of Italy and the unification of Germany one by one in detail. The sixth subtopic of Unit 1 is the American Civil War. As known in the American history, the period from 1861 up to 1865 is known as the American Civil War. Kanaaf bara 1861 kaasee 1865 kan jedhamu American Civil War jedhama. Asirratti kan laallu sababni American Civil War maayini cost of American Civil War, causes and the consequences of American Civil War. American Civil War akkuma beekamu stage lamatti qoodama. The first stage from 1861 up to 1863. The second stage or the second phase mean from 1865 up to 1865. Finally, we will learn the consequence of American Civil War. Consequence in American Civil War maal akka ta'e ilaalla. Finally, the seventh subtopic of Unit 1 is the Eastern question. Eastern question, when you say the main feature of development of nationalism in eastern part of Europe, especially in the Balkan region, with the declining the power of Ottoman Turkey. Kanaaf asirratti kan laallu the declining of the power of Ottoman Turkey and the lead to Eastern question, especially Eastern question mean the tension between or among the European great powers on one hand and the Ottoman Turkey, somewhat on the other hand. Kanaaf Eastern question irratti immoo Balkan Wars ilaalla. Balkan Wars kun bakka lamatti qoodama. The first Balkan War, the second Balkan War. Garaagarummaan isaanii maal akka ta'e gadi fageenya ilaalla waan ta'eef kanaaf main subtopic in Unit 1 kana fakkaata. Let us start part one. Part one is let me see the main objective of this unit. By the end of this unit, you will be able to identify factors that contribute to the growth of nationalism. Kanaf nationalism sababa kan ta'ani, faktaroonni jiran maal akka ta'ani tokko tokko ilaalla. Appreciate the existing technological development of capitalist economy. Make comparative analysis of Italy's and the German unification, and explain the various economic, political, social philosophy developed in Europe and their impacts on rest of the world. Isang kun objective unity Kenyati. Kanaf part 1 itti gaafa darbinu. So part 1 ni jalqabna. Part 1 is development of capitalism and the industrial revolution. So what does capitalism mean? You will get the definition of capitalism and industrial revolution under part 1. What does industrial revolution mean? We'll see one by one. So the objectives of this subtopic, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to list down the main features of capitalism. The main features of capitalism, amalni capitalism ikun maal fa'i? Kanaaf isaan kana ilaalla. Describe theoretical foundation of Marxian Economics as known during the 19th century. Two antagonistic economic theories emerged: the capitalist economic theory, Marxian economic theory, or socialism. Analyze the major factors that relate to industrial revolution. Case of technological factor in organizational factor in development in Malfidera. Industrial revolution fakka jalqabuuf gahee guddaa taphate waan ta'eef isaan kana tokko tokkoon ilaalla waan ta'eef examine the social political results of industrial revolution. Industrial revolution positive consequence qaba, negative consequence qaba, political, social and economic consequence ani tokko tokko ilaalla waan ta'eef that notes the global socio-economic change during the 1850 up to 1914. So 1850 in a Congress in Rakase until 1914, the outbreak of the First World War. Part 1, the development of capitalism. Development of capitalism. What does capitalism mean? Capitalism definition capitalism means it is a political and economic system of one country in which industry and other trade sectors controlled by private owners, not by the government, is called capitalism. Kanaaf sirni capitalism maal gaafa jennu garuu dinagdeen biyya tokko, daldalli biyya sanaa fi industiriin biyya sana, in short all business sectors controlled by private owners or private companies, not by the government, this system called capitalism. Kanaaf government intervention in jiru. Kanaaf dominant yookiin dominate kan godha warra kamidha? Private owners and private company dha. Government yookiin maal jedhama? Command economy jedhama waan ta'eef. So under this subtopic you will get about the difference between capitalism and or free markets and command economy. So the nature and the main features of capitalism. Uumamni capitalism maal akka fakkaatu? Feature yookiin immoo amaloonni isaa maal akka fakkaatan ilaalla. So capitalism has become the dominant economic system in Western world since the breakup of feudalism. Capitalism in Kumaratun family, Kufati feudalism imported data, especially on the womb of feudalism, capitalism emerged. So capitalism was the development next to the decline of feudalism. For Europeans considered the systems divided through into two important parties or two systems, old system and the new system. For Europeans, old system mean feudalism. New system mean for Europeans capitalism. So capitalism emerged after the decline of feudalism. So we can say in short, capitalism has become dominant economic system in the Western world since the breakup of feudalism. Kanaaf sirni haaraan erga sirni moofaan sun capitalism irraa feudalism sun kufeen booddeetti jalqabe Europe maal jedhama? Capitalism jedhama waan ta'eef isa kana. So it emerged in northwestern Europe, especially in Great Britain. As now Great Britain, known as the homeland of capitalism or industrial revolution, keessayyuu akka seenaan jedhutti Great Britain jalqabe capitalismiin jarra naanna jarraa 19 yookiin immoo bara 1850moota keessa garuu capitalismii kan jalqabe sanaan duratti long capitalism not new phenomena was developed especially during the Middle Age in the 16th century and the Netherlands next to Britain kan jalqabe especially from the 16th century to the 17th century when mercantilism was established. So basic capitalism can determine what we can say mercantilism. What does mercantilism mean? We will see about mercantilism under this subtopic. So capitalism in Great Britain and Netherlands. Jarra muraja fafurtu wafati kan jalqabe mercantilism erga established ta'e immoo erga jalqabe immoo waan ta'eef. So what does mercantilism mean? So mercantilism, when we say it is mercantilism in short, distribution of goods that are bought at a certain price. That means distribution of goods that are bought at a certain price and sold at higher price in order to generate profits. This is known as what? Mercantilism. Mercantilism erga jalqabe booddee capitalism jalqabe jenneerra waan ta'eef kanaaf mercantilism kun maalidha? Mercantilism meeshaawwan tokko yookiin immoo meeshaawwan gatii murtaa'eedhaan bituudha. Bought at certain price and sold at higher price in order to what? Generate profit. Kanaaf mercantilism jennu kuni meeshaawwan dheedhii ta'an gatii murtaa'aadhaan bitu deebi'anii garuu gatii olaanaatti gurguruudha. Maal gochuudhaaf in order to generate profit. Kaayyoon isaa inni guddaan maal gochuudhaaf? Bu'aa buufachuudhaaf waan ta'eef this became foundation for the beginning of capitalism in Western world from the 16th century up to the 17th century. Again, another factor for the beginning of capitalism means the ethics of Protestant Reformation. Keessaayyuu Protestant Reformation of the 16th century fostered certain ethics. Ethics were Protestant mainly, which helped to consolidate capitalism in the Western world. Mean the Protestant leaders encouraged saving, hard working, as well as what they also encouraged somewhat trade. Because of this, the ethics fostered by Protestant leaders led to the development of capitalism. So, Protestant Reformation of the 16th century helped to consolidate capitalism in the Western world. Kan jennee sababii kanaatiif kana warra Protestant kun saving money encourage gochaa turanii, trading encourage gochaa turanii, hard working encourage gochaa turan waan ta'eef this also became the main factor for the beginning of capitalism. The second main factor mean the rise of strong nation state, also another factor for the beginning of capitalism. Keessaayyuu capitalismidhaaf Great Britain akka jalqabuudhaaf gahee guddaa kan taphate maayinni the rise of strong nation states in Europe. That means also helped the development of capitalism, encouraged the development of capitalism in different ways. How these nation states succeed in supporting the development of capitalism in different ways, especially the first by regulations. Kanaaf strong nation state in argamuun isaanii keessaayyuu Great Britain biyyoota biraa keessatti seerota baasuudhaan regulations which encouraged capitalism isa kana jajjabeessuun turani uniform monetary system idhaan lammaffaan isaa uniform monetary system kan ittiin bitamuuf gurguramu yookiin immoo qarshiin jennu kun wal fakkaataa akka ta'uudhaaf this also encouraged development of capitalism. That means some effort of strong nation states, they came up with new monetary system, which somewhat encouraged development of capitalism, another important factor. So, the third public investment Kan biraa warri mootummoonni strong nation state emerging strong nation state immoo maal gochaa turani? They encouraged public investment. Kanaaf investmentiin akka jajjabaatuuf gahee guddaa taphachaa turani. Inni arfaffaan inni immoo gaheen isaanii maali? The strong nation state also made possible shift from public to private initiative. As now, capitalism, and as already mentioned, capitalism means, in other words, that means when private owners and private companies dominate business sectors, this now as capitalism. Kanaaf mootonni yookiin nation state in argaman kun maal godhani? Shifted from public to private initiative. Kanaaf qabeenya waliin irraa gara qabeenya dhuunfaatti yookiin immoo abbootii qabeenya dhuunfaa jajjabeessa waan ta'eef, kanaaf strong nation state also another factor for the rise of capitalism. Kanaaf nation state kun argamuun isaanii karaa guddoo arfan kanaaf capitalism jajjabeessaa turan waan ta'eef isaan kan argannaaf. Kanaaf jaarraa 18ffatti gaafa dhufnu mercantilism declined. First of all, mercantilism maal akka ta'e ibsineerra. Gatii murtaadhaan bituudhaa fi gatii olaanaatti gurguruudha. Kun maal gochuudhaafi? To generate or in order to generate profit jenneedha mercantilism kana. Kanaafi mercantilism immoo kan inni dhufe jaarraa 18ffaa keessatti. Kan inni jalqabee exactly tiin sababa kan hubate immoo jaarraa 16ffaarraa kaasee serious development of mercantilism jenneerra. Kanaaf jaarraa 18ffaa mercantilism declined when a group of economic theorists led by Adam Smith. Adam Smith namni jedhamu kuni they began to challenge mercantilism or mercantilist doctrines because of different reasons. They came up with their assumption regarding mercantilism. So mercantilism declined, challenged by a group of economic theorists led by Adam Smith. As a result of mercantilism, the state accumulated wealth. Kanaaf mootummoonni yookiin strong state warri jedhaman qabeenya walitti kuufachaa jiru, qabeenya walitti qabachaa jiru. Kanaaf inni kun uummata hiyyoomsanii waan yaadaniif they began to oppose mercantilism. As a result of the decline mercantilism, industrial capitalism arose in the 18th century. Kanaaf mercantilism advantage olaanaa qaba. During mercantilism, Europeans accumulated their capital or wealth, but also declined in the 18th century. Kanaaf due to the vast accumulation of capital during the phase of mercantile capitalism, capitalism also developed. Kanaaf capitalism kan inni sirriitti guddate maaliidhaafi yeroo sana keessatti during mercantilism accumulation of wealth or capital itu jira waan ta'eef. Kanaaf gatii murtaadhaan bitu, gatii olaanaatti gurguratu waan ta'eef kaayyoon isaanii profit argachuudhaafi kun immoo maal isaan gargaareera? Akka isaan qabeenya walitti qabataniif isaan gargaareera. Kanaaf mercantilism is the main factor for the beginning of development of capitalism. Later on it faced challenge from Adam Smith and others. Kanaaf inni kun immoo merchant capitalism and investment in machinery akka guddatuuf guddaa taphateera because the vast accumulation of capital during the merchant capitalism. This means another important factor for development of capitalism. So industrial capitalism marks the development of manufacturing factory system. As now, development of capitalism or industrial revolution in working place changed as well as way of production also changed. That means the two important outcome of industrial capitalism. So industrial capitalism, that working place when you say, that means producing by hand at the home changes to manufacturing factory. In factories, working place changed, so way of production also changed. That means producing by hand or by simple manual machine to by newly innovative machine production also started. So industrial capitalism marks the development of manufacturing factory system that led to global domination of capitalist mode of production. Kanaaf sirni capitalism kun industrial capitalism wanta gurguddoodhaan fideera. Manufacturing factory system jedhama. namni harkaan yookiin maashina harkaan hojjetee oomishuurra gara warshaa keessatti oomishuutti ce'eera waan ta'eef that mean the outcome of industrial capitalism, one of the most important issue under unit or this subtopic, again it led to global domination of capitalist mode of production, especially after the decline of feudalism. Feudalism was the dominant economic system in Western Europe. It was declined and replaced by new system which was called capitalism. Kanaf kanan booddeetti in the place of old system, new system dominated what we can say capitalist mode of production. When the world or global domination started, kanaf capitalism in akkata inti guddate waluma factorywan gurguddoo isaan kana fakkaatu. Now let us see about main characteristic features of capitalism. Capitalism amaloota meeqa qaba? Asirratti naannoo amaloota 5 ilaalla. Kanaf capitalism economic system, political system of one country jenneerra. That means the role of private ownership, not the government. No intervention of government or less intervention of government in capitalism. Kanaf amali capitalism keessaa tokko maalidha? Private ownership of means of production jedha. Not by the government. Kanaf sirna capitalism keessatti oomisha yookiin immoo qabeenya kan qabatu warra kamidha? Namoota dhuunfaa yookiin immoo kaampaanii dhuunfaadha. So the first main feature of capitalism means private ownership of the means of production. So the economy is run by individuals or corporations who own and operate companies and make decisions on the use of resources, not by the government, no government intervention in the capitalism. Sabikatif private ownership means of production you can take money dafi capitalism keessatti qabeenyi hundi yookiin immoo economic kan hoogganan warra namoota dhuunfaa individuals or corporations jedham. Isaan kun immoo operate companies warra company mataa isaanii banuu danda'an akkasumas immoo decisions on the use of resources qabeenyatti fayyadamu irratti immoo murtee kan kennan isaan kamidha? Warroota dhuunfaa kana waan ta'eef so capitalism is my first main feature mean private ownership of means of production. The second is the formation of two antagonistic classes. With the development of capitalism, society divided into two social classes, the upper class and the lower class. As now in European history during the feudalism, society divided into around 4 classes. Upper privileged class, that means the clergy, kings, nobles. Under that we can get landlords or under them serfs and finally slaves. That during capitalism, European society divided into two antagonistic social classes. The first capitalist class, the owners, sometimes called the bourgeois. Kanaf isaan warra kamidha? Warrooti abbaa qabeenyaati. Owners warra ta'an. Kanaf sirni capitalism yoo maal fide jechuudha? Society divided into two antagonistic classes. Kanaf faallaa walii kan kilaasii lamatu hundeeffame. Isaan jalqaba maal jedhamu? The capitalist class or the owners jedhamu. Isaan kun own the means of production warra qabeenya qaban isaan kun means of production oomisha hunda kan qaban isaan kanadha. Keessaayyuu property warra qaban isaan kana plant that mean machineries equipments kan jarreen kanaati. Kanaaf the first class capitalist class hundeeffame. Under the capitalist class we can get the working class which were known as proletariat. Kitaba kana gubbaatti subatillee isaan kun maal jedhamu? Proletariat warra jedhamanidha. Which sold their labor to capitalist class in exchange of what wage. Kana warreen kun immoo qarshii argachuudhaaf humna isaanii yookiin labor qabeenya isaanii warra gurguratanidha isaan kun. Kanaafi the second main feature of capitalism means the formation of two antagonistic social classes formed. The first, the capitalist class or the owners. Under them there were also working class who were known as proletariat. Proletariat had nothing at that time. Simply they sold their labor to the capitalist class exchange of wage. Kanaf minda argachuuf qarshii argachuudhaaf humna isaanii warra gubbatan jiraatan isaan kun maal jedhamu? The working class or proletariat warra jennu isaan kan arganna. The third main feature of capitalism mean capital accumulation. Akka seenaan jedhutti the term capital derived from Greek word capital that mean it may be money. So capital means accumulation of something. It includes money. Kanaaf capitaliin hiikni isaayyuu waan tokko kuusuu yookiin immoo walitti qabachuudha. Kanaaf the third main feature of capitalism means accumulation. Capital accumulation means the main feature of capitalism. So capitalism used to accumulate capital to a large productive capacity. Kanaaf kaayyoon isaanii guddaan waa Europeans or the industrialized nation or capitalist nation accumulate wealth. Their main target was to a large productive capacity. Hanga oomisha isaanii dabaluuf jecha maal godhu jarreen kuni in this case they accumulated wealth. So the third main feature of capitalism means capital accumulation. The fourth profit motive. Bu'aaf hojjechuudha. Amalli capitalism inni guddaan profit motive jedha bu'aaf hojjechuudha. Capitalism, the domination of individuals and the companies, the main target was what? To gain profits. So the motive for all companies in the capitalist system is to make and sell goods and service only for profit. Kanaaf hojiin isaanii maal gochuudhaaf bu'aa buufachuudha. One day the motive behind the development of capitalism means profit motives. This means the main feature of capitalism. The fifth, no or less government intervention or it was free markets. Capitalism being a free market economic system. Sirna gabaa bilisaati. Isa jennuun afaan Oromoodhaani. Kanaaf no or less government intervention. Mootummaan gilbadeessummaan isaa sirna kapitalizimii baay'ee xiqqaadha yookiin immoo hin jiru. Kanaaf yoo mootummaan harka keessa galfate nu maal ta'a? Command economic system ta'a. When trade, industry, and the business sectors free from the intervention of government, this system is in short called capitalism. So, in the capitalism, no or less government intervention, or it is sometimes called the free market. This idea is known as what? Laissez-faire. Laissez-faire economy. Kun jalqaba kan jalqabe akka seenaan jirutti biyya Britain ito, England itti. Kanaaf England known as the homeland of capitalism kan jedhameef sababii kanaatiif laissez-faire economic system that mean no restriction on the trade as well as what business sectors. It is near to free markets. Free market ida waan ta'eef isa kan arganna walumaa galatti kanaaf in short the main feature of capitalism isaan kanaadha. Private property dha, qabeenyi kan namoota dhuunfaati, not controlled by government. Again, competition jira. That competition for profit. This means the most free competition or free market. And market price determined by supply and demand. Gati gabaa gadhee kan murteessumaa inni not by the government. It was determined by supply and demand. Eessiidhaaf fedha gubbaarratti hundaa'e gatiin kan murteeffamu supply and demand gubbaarratti hundaa'a. The main feature of capitalism. Again, profit motive. The companies and individuals during the capitalism, their main target was production, sale of goods based on profit motive. This means the main feature of capitalism. Finally, no or less government interference. That means intervention. This means the main feature of capitalism in short. Kanaaf capitalism ideology immoo challenge isa qunnameera. Dhumarratti keessaayyuu capitalism ideology somewhat especially after Karl Marx amanni qabutti namni isa kana deeggaruu yoodhaan Adam Smith. So ideology of classical capitalism was articulated by Adam Smith. Keessaa ideology capitalism kan deeggaruu yoodhaan Adam Smith dha. Kan mormuu garee Karl Marx fa'aati. Kanaafi two theorists emerged. The capitalist theorists and the social theorists emerged. Kesayu during capitalism, the ideology of classical capitalism was articulated by a person called Adam Smith, who lived from 1723 up to 1790. Kanaaf namni kun kitaaba barreesseera. Kitaabni isaa maal jedhama? An inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wealth of nation jedhama. This book published in 1776. Because of this, the capitalism ideology supported by a person called Adam Smith. Adam Smith wrote his book, An Inquiry into the nature and the causes of the wills of nation kan jedhudha. Kanaaf Adam Smith Family recommended leaving economic decision for free play of self-regulating market forces jedhu. Kanaaf no intervention of government. So oppose the intervention of government. Mootummaan gidduu seenuu qabu free market economic system kuni warruma keessatti hirmaataniif decisions yookiin immoo murteensa of kennuu qaba. Free play ta'uu qaba. Bilisaan namni irratti hirmaachuu qaba jedhanii yaadu waan ta'eef so isni support the idea of laissez-faire economy. Kanaaf dinagdee bilisaa sirna dinagdee bilisaa that free from intervention of government kan hordofa so economic that would benefit these practitioners. Practitioners that mean while also promoting society's general welfare. Kanaaf gabaan kun laissez-faire economy yoo ta'e namoota hirmaatan kana sirriitti deeggara isaanii akkasumas immoo guddina uummataa yookiin immoo dhimma uummataa irratti faayidaa olaanaa qabanii yaadu waan ta'eef kanaaf in short we can say the ideology of classical capitalism was articulated by Adam Smith. Kanaaf Adam Smith yaada kan sirriitti deeggara san kan argannam we have also antagonistic idea of capitalism also emerged. Kanaaf the antithesis of capitalism is Marxian Economics. What we can say socialism. Socialism also emerged. Kanaaf ijaanni Karl Marx maal jedhama? Marxian Economics jedhama. Isaan kun immoo faallaa warra capital antithesis of capitalism. So opposite of capitalism. Somewhat emerged. The second theorist group also emerged under Karl Marx and Engels. Nama jedhama jalatti argamaniiru. So we can give antithesis of capitalism is Marxian economy. Karl Marx suggests that socialism where there was no private ownership and all means of production were collected or state owned. Ta'uu qaba jedha. Kanaaf fallammoo Adam Smith Karl Marx yaada haaraa qabatee dhufe. Yaanni inni deeggaru maal jedhama? Socialism dha kan inni deeggaru. Kanaaf according to him socialism mean where there was no private ownership. No private ownership, that means socialism. Qabeenyi dhuunfaan jiru. All means of production were collective or state owned. Kanaaf qabeenyi hundinuu kana yoo ta'u qaba collective yookiin immoo socialism gareen qabatamuu qaba yookiin immoo statein qabatamuu qaba jedhee yaada. Kanaaf they began to oppose capitalism. So capitalism opposed by Karl Marx and his followers. This means the most important one. So central planning barbaadu sanguni central planning determine how much should be produced. Kanaaf ammoo oomishamuu qabu. Kanaaf mootummaarraa yookiin centrally murtaa'uu qaba jedhanii yaadu. How all resources were allocated. Qabeenyi kamiyyuu hamminni itti akkan itti qoodamu control ta'uu qaba. Central planning is very important according to Karl Marx and others. This means the opposite of what capitalism. So the antithesis of capitalism is Marxian socialism economics. This means which developed later on in the 19th century. Second agenda, Karl Marx believes that capitalism brings about class segregation between capitalist class and the working class. But during capitalism, two social classes formed or emerged. The capitalist classes, sometimes called the bourgeois, and the social classes, working classes, which were known as the proletariat, because of the according to Karl Marx, capitalism brings about class segregation. Kanaaf hawaasa kana gidduutti maal hundeesseera? Segregation qoodamsa guddaa uumeera. Qoodamsa kun inni gidduutti uume akka Karl Marxitti between the capitalist class and the working class gidduutti uumameedha. Kanaaf capitalism is not important, not necessary according to Karl Marx and his friends. So according to Karl Marx, the exploitation of surplus value of labor is one of the major drawback of capitalism. Kanaaf dubartafummaan capitalism inni guddaan inni qabeenyi warra hojjettoota saamamuu isaati. Kanaaf this means the major drawbacks of what capitalism mean. This idea was supported by a person called Karl Marx. According to him and his friends, exploitation of labor of the workers was the main problem of capitalism. Kanaaf negative consequence humna warra humna bulan yookiin immoo hojjettoota qabeenyi isaanii saamame jedhanii yaadu waan ta'eef they began to oppose capitalism. Kanaaf inni lammaffaan industrial revolution dha. Capitalism ittaanee immoo kan jiru industrial revolution, somewhat the outcome of capitalism. So the second subtopic of unit one is industrial revolution dha. Kanaaf guddee lammaffaadha. Similar to capitalism, it was started in Great Britain again. Kanaaf inni kunis kan jalqabe eessattidha? Great Britain keessaa gurguddoo hedduu jira waan ta'eef takka tokko ilaalla. Kanaaf industrial revolution was first established establishment of industrial capitalism in any country. So what industrial revolution mean? Industrial revolution mean the development of industries, the development of factories. You know revolution mean. Kanaaf warraaqsa industry jechuun maal jechuudha? Babal'ina industry yookiin babal'ina warshaa leetii jechuudha waan ta'eef this called industrial revolution which first established or started in Great Britain. So industrial revolution was the first establishment of industrial capitalism in any country. Kanaaf biyya kam keessattuu capitalism kan jalqabe industrial revolution kan jalqabe capitalism and is the outcome of capitalism in the karaa biraatiin. It also took place in Britain in the period between 1750 up to or 1780 and 1850. Kanaaf capitalism took place in Britain similar to capitalism. Industrial revolution and capitalism, both of them were started with in Great Britain. Kanaaf sababa gurguddoo hedduu jira. Britain strongest nation qabdi. Akkasumas immoo source of power kan akka coal and other natural resources qabdi waan ta'eef Britain became the center of industrial revolution. Inni kunis naannoo bara 1750 yookiin bara 1850 gidduutti waan ta'eef this industrial revolution mean developed or established in Great Britain. By 1850 Britain was already a major industrial state. Kanaaf biyya industriidhaan guddatte jedhamtee kan beekamtu bara 1850 keetti waan ta'eef Britain isaan kun the development industrial revolution isa kan arganna. So it is major industries and its transport system had been transformed by machinery and steam power. Keessaayyuu harkaan hojjechuurraan simple machinery harkaan hojjetamerraan gara kamitti jedhee newly innovative machinery jalqabaniiru steam power. The steam power immoo the new source of power during industrial revolution. Keessaayyuu before that source of power mean like coal and somewhat other water power. Some with steam power immoo hurki bishaan yookiin immoo ho'iinsi gara energy jijjiiramuudhaan new source of energy ta'eera waan ta'eef kanaaf Britain keetti transportation isaanii transport system as well as machineries operated by new system which called steam power. This indicates about the beginning of industrial revolution in Great Britain. Kanaaf industrial revolution means industrial revolution jechuun maal jechuudha? Inni samaa'in industrial revolution when you say the industrial production was transformed so that far greater and cheaper production was possible than ever before. Kanaaf industrial revolution gaafa inni maal jechuudha karaa biraatiin Anni production yookiin industrial production kun jijjiiramuu isaati. Kanaaf greater and cheaper gatiin isaas madaalawaa yookiin gatii mi'aan taaneen hangi isaas immoo kan fooyyee waan ta'eef this mean the outcome of industrial revolution. Kanaaf this cheap mass production was achieved by interconnecting organizational and technological changes. Keessaayyuu cheap mass production kun gatii madaalawaan yookiin immoo amma tokko gatii mi'aan taaniin kan gurguramu sababii gurguddoo lamaafi. Kanaaf achieved by interconnecting organizational and technological changes. Kanaaf gurguddoo lama jira. Organizational change gaafa maal jechuudha? The factory owners planted industry, workers also somewhat employed in that factories. This indicate organizational change. Technological change means the innovation of new machineries. These two important factors that encouraged what we can say industrial revolution, which led to cheap mass production. Kanaaf walumaa interconnecting between two important issues organizational and technological changing kuni maal fide jechuudha hangi oomisha akka gaata oomisha of ga'e guddaa taphateera. Kanaaf this organizational and technological change were at the heart of what industrial revolution. Kan industrial revolution kan akka guddatuudhaaf ga'ee guddaa kan taphate maali? At the center that interconnecting of organizational technological changes. This means the most important issue. They were also changed from dispersed production in small units under the old putting our system to new factory system of industrial revolution. Kan jalqaba inni maali? Industrial revolution wala mafideta. Change brought important changes, especially working place changed, how to material production also changed. Kind of industrial revolution change from dispersed production in a small unit. Namni mana mana isaatti taa'ee addaan faca'ee oomishurraa gara miti jira new factory system of industrial revolution jira waan ta'eef this indicate the mode of production changed because of industrial revolution. Producing at the home changed to the European or industrial societies. They went toward factories during that period. This indicates industrial revolution, one of the most important issue. So under the new factory system, industrial revolution or production was concentrated in large units. Kanaaf sirna kapitalizimii amma oomisha baay'inaan dabaleera. The outcome of industrial revolution gaafa jennu the production also increased the amount of production. So under new factory system, because human Europeans, especially the industrialized nations, were they not working at home by hand, manual hands and the simple machine to transformer to working at factories. So new factories planted by the factory owners, or what we can say by the capitalist class. So this also brought new change. In this case, new factory system industrial production was concentrated in large units. Kanaaf hanga oomisha yookiin immoo dabalaa deeme waan ta'eef isa kana the industrial capitalism owned factory and built machinery in factory. Keessa the capitalism industrial capitalist warri jedhaman warri abbootii qabeenyaa kun maal ta'an the owned factory. Kanaaf warshaa qabachuu jalqabanii built machinery in the factory. Kanaaf machinery mataa isaanii hundeessuu jalqaba yookiin dhaabuu jalqaba waan ta'eef this indicates industrial revolution, which also facilitates industrial revolution. The workers in factory that indicate organizational change kan jenne fi sakana. Organizational change means technological change plus organizational change lead to cheap production. Kupatti kan jenne kana warri warshaa abbootii qabeenya warshaa dhaabuudha hojjettoonni warshaa keessa hojjetu. Kun maal agarsiisa? Organizational change dha, which leads to the development of capitalism. So don't forget, we said that industrial revolution keessatti interconnecting of technological and organizational change mean as a heart of industrial revolution. Okay, industry jenneerra. Kanaaf ammiin dhaabbatu yookiin immoo warshaan dhaabbata, abbootiin qabeenya warshaa dhaabu, hojjettoonni immoo dhaqanii warshaa keessa hojjetu. Kanaaf inni kun maal jedhama? The organizational change because of industrial revolution. So which were sold to factory owners for money. Kanaaf isaan warra kamidha? Warra humna isaanii gurguratan. Labor isaanii warra gurguratan labor isaanii kan gurguratan isaan kana waan ta'eef isaan kana. So the wage workers in factories were sometimes negative in some way. Some were hired and dismissed at the will of industrial capitalists. This indicates the negative outcome of industrial revolution. Hojjettoonni maal ta'u? Ni qacaram. Kanaaf ni mindeeffamu gaaf kan maal ta'u? Dismissed ta'u. Hin ari'atamu hojiirraa ni ka'u waan ta'eef this indicates the negative outcome of industrial revolution. Industrial revolution also developed in different ways starting from 1850. Second Adam, so what were the advantage of factory system for the factory owners? Kana warra abbootii qabeenyaadhaaf factory system in advantage akkamii qabaadha. Kanaaf factory system enabled far more production given time at lower unit cost. The first one. Kanaaf yeroo kenname keessatti gatii murtaa'aa yookiin immoo baasii xiqqaadhaan oomisha guddaa oomishuudha. Kanaaf it enabled far more production in a given time at a lower unit cost. The advantage of factory system for the factory owners. Kanaaf abbootii qabeenyaatiif advantage inni guddaan maali? Yeroo murtaa'aa keessatti gatii xiqqaadhaan oomisha guddaa oomishuudha. Inni kan biraamu it also more profitable one. Factory system mean for the factory owners the advantage was what? More profitable one. Kanaaf bu'aa baay'ee buufataniiru. Kanaaf it provides that the goods which were produced could be sold. Meeshaawwan bitaman ni gurguramu, meeshaawwan oomishaman maal ta'u ni gurguramu, jarreen kun gaafsana maal ta'u bu'aa baay'ee buufatu. Kanaaf inni kan biraa maal arganna? Factory owners or factory system for the factory owners disadvantage was what? Profitable, more profitable. Kanaaf 1850 the factory system was dominant in major industries in Britain. Kanaaf bara 1852 factory system Britain became the dominant one. The economy of Britain dominated by industry or capitalism around 1850. Kanaaf bara 1850 Britain dinagdee industrial capitalism bilchaataa gubbaa keessatti kan jedhamtee fi sababii kanaatiif. Kanaaf machining factories replaced or complemented work done by hands with human strength and skill. Kanaaf factory machinery advantage sira biramaa inni advantage isaa bira the factory replaced or complemented work done by hand. Hojiiwwan harkaan hojjetan maaltu bakka bu'ama? Factory yookiin warshaan yookiin maashinoonni bakka bu'anii waan ta'eef this also made the working condition somewhat easy or simple for the factory owners. Industrial revolution took machinery as a stage further. Kanaaf amma caal amma guddaa maashinariin kun itti fayyadamuu jalqabanii harkaan fayyadamuu yookiin immoo humna bineeldotaatiin fayyadamuu maaliif bakka bu'eera? New innovative machine mean advantage gurguddaa of keessaa qaba. Kan biraas there were more machines of what? Of new types. During that period they were more complex and larger. Karaa biraatiin immoo maashinoonni argaman kun maalidha? New types of machineidha. Kan namoonni baay'een itti hin beekne kun immoo negative advantages qaba, positive advantages qaba. They were more complex and larger'idha. Keessa hojjettoonni baay'een kan itti qaama isaanii dhaban because it was new machine innovated during that period. New for the workers, this means positive consequence, negative consequence. Kanaaf hojjettoonni baay'een isaanii harka isaanii qaama isaanii kan itti hir'atan yeroo sana keessatti. Kanaaf one of the main feature of industrial revolution, new machine factories and elsewhere employed inanimate power. Maal fayyadamuu jalqabanii? Hojiiwwan yookiin immoo humna namaa kan hin taane, humna lubbu qabeeyyii otoo hin taane humna lubbu dhabeeyyii fayyadamuu jalqaban in the place of hands. So the main feature of capitalism in industrial revolution, the new machine factories and elsewhere employed animated power. Kanaaf humna lubbu qabeeyyii kan hin taane power yaaraa fayyadamuu jalqabanidha. Kanaaf the middle age especially animated power from water and from wind has been used. Keessaayyuu source of power kan ta'an eessarraa fudhatamu? From water as well as what? From wind has been used during that period. Later on, steam power became new form of power in factories. Keessaayyuu steam power kun jalqabuunsa gahee guutuun akka jalqabeedhaani James Watt fa'iitiin waan ta'eef no common warri jedhamantu argate yoo jalqabaatti waan ta'eef isa kana gargadiitti ilaalla. Kanaaf steam power became new form of power came into use. This means the place of wind and the water steam power began to use as what? As source of power during that industrial revolution. Kanaaf steam power yookiin hurki suni gara ho'iitti jijjiirame maashinii sochoosuudhaaf gahee guddaa taphata waan ta'eef isaan kan arganna. Kanaaf the heat to generate system steam came from burning coal, which in Britain was cheap and abundant one. Kanaaf why Britain was known as the homeland of industrial revolution? When capitalism and industrial revolution started in Great Britain, Britain known by source of coal and other natural resources, which facilitates the development of capitalism or industrial revolution. So the heat to generate steam came from burning coal. Kanaaf steamii kana kan sochoosu coal yookiin immoo cilee kana gargara bu'uutiin humna energy ta'a. Humna keetti immoo gatii isaa baay'ee gadaanaadha. Cheap and abundant kanaaf isa kan arganna. Kanaaf steam engine kana yoo ta'u ishee in the innovation of steam engine we have two important personalities. These were a person called Newcomen and James Watt. But in history, the popular one was James Watt. Kanaaf achi keessatti baay'ee beekamaan James Watt dha. Garuu warra jedhuudhaan taphatanii eenyu fe'uudha? Newcomen nama jedhamudha. The first commercially system of engine was constructed by Newcomen. Yoo jalqabaatiif commercial kan ta'e steam engine kan oomishe Newcomen nama jedhamudha. Around 1705 or 1709 dha. Garuu baay'eetiin fayyadamne. But it could only be used for pumps chiefly in mining. Naannoo warshaa walbuuda baasuutti fayyadamaa ture waan ta'eef jalqaba steam engine kan argateedha. Newcomen nama jedhamudha. The popular person was James Watt. James Watt from 1783 or 1784. This person and that mean invented what we can say steam engine. Kanaaf steam engine namni beekamaan bara 1784 argateedha. A person called James Watt. James Watt made a steam engine which was more powerful and more economical in its use of fuel and adapted to operate machinery in factories. Kanaaf fuel yookiin immoo energy source of power irraa fayyadamuudhaaf kan guddaa taphatu. Akkasumas immoo maashinii hundumaa keessatti kan sochoosu maal arganna James Watt kan inni argate steam engine isa beekamaadha waan ta'eef. Isaan kana osoo industrial revolution somewhat became possible because of new innovations. That innovation was the invention of what we can say steam engine, first by Newcomen, finally by a person called James Watt. Kanaaf from 1780s, more and more factories adopted steam engine. Kanaaf naannoo bara 1780 keessatti warshaan hundinuu maaliin socho'u jechuudha? Steam poweridhaan. Because of innovation, thanks to James Watt and Newcomen, we can say in short, kana fakkaata isaan kanaaf steam power was applied to land transport in form of railway. Keessaayyuu biyyoota akka Britain fa'aa keessatti later in America wanti argamaniiru they began to use steam power for transportation. So steam power was also applied to land transport in the form of railway. Kanaaf inni kun isa jalqabaatti biyya Briteenitti kan jalqabeedhaan. The first modern railway was operated entirely by steam locomotive and carries passenger as well as freight. That means Britain jalqabaatti meeshaawwan garaagaraa what you can say like vehicle kan jennuun kana as well as meeshaawwan operationidhaaf kan fayyadaman yookiin immoo operate what you can locomotives passengeroota yookiin immoo namoota baay'ee fe'ee kan deemu kan jalqabe naannoo bara 1780 booddeetti. Kanaaf inni jalqaba Liverpool and Manchester Railway was opened in 1813. Kanaaf bara 1830 keessatti immoo railway Liverpoolidhaa fi riilee baaburaa akan Manchester kan inni jalqabe naannoo bara 1830 keessatti. Kanaaf by 1850 Britain again known by the railway construction. A network of railway connected all important places in Britain. Kanaaf Britain industrial revolution dhaan beekamti, capitalism dhaan beekamti, again by the construction of railway. Kanaaf daandiin baaburaa kun naannoo bara 1850 keessatti bakka murteessoo Britain ta'an hunda walitti danda'eera waan ta'eef. This means because of what? Because of the invention of steam power. Steam power kan hundaa fide waan ta'eef ni form of power, one of the outcomes of industrial revolution in the world history. This one is the most important one. Finally, let us see the political and the socio-economic consequence of industrial revolution. What's the political consequence? The social and economic consequence of industrial revolution. Industrial revolution means guddina warshaawwanii, the industrial revolution meaning in other words, the production amount of production also increased. This one is the most important one. So what is the political socio-economic consequence of industrial revolution? The first, cheap mass production. Hammi oomisha bushaadha yookiin immoo gatii salphaadhaan argachuu ni danda'ama. Kun maalidhaa fi because of industrial revolution, the production or what we can say some goods produced by machineries also became somewhat developed because of industrial revolution. So cheap mass production was one of the features of industrial revolution. Amalisani guddaan isa kana yookiin somewhat economic consequences in isa kanaani social consequences. The main problem become overproduction and consequent difficulty of selling the commodity which were produced. Rakkoon guddaan immoo maal barsana keessatti overproduction jira. Cheap production overproduction. New machine lead to somewhat overproduction. Namni jalqaba kan hojjetam xiqqoodha oomishaam amma garuu they began to use new machineries or new machines. This lead to overproduction. This lead to cheap mass production also. This political and economic social consequence of industrial revolution. Before industrial revolution, the economic depression in India usually resulted from wars, big epidemics and most often bad harvest. Jalqaba keessatti before industrial revolution, economic depression ni kan fidan. Kufaatiin dinagdee kan fidan wanta gurguddoo kan arfan wars, waraana, dhukkuboota garaagaraa, dhukkuboonni gurguddoo addunyaa kana gaafa qunnaman. Most often bad harvests that mean or sassaabbii irratti rakkoon jiraachuudha. Wanti some before industrial revolution became the main causes or reasons for deep economic depression. But later on, after industrial revolution, economic depression also continued because of what? Because of overproduction. So from industrial revolution onward, however, the normal cause of economic depression was overproduction caused by lack of effective demand. Kanaaf addunyaa kana by economic depression before industrial revolution maalidhaa fi sababa waraanaa, sababa dhukkubaa fi sababa sassaabbii irratti yookiin immoo bad harvests seenuudhaa fi finally during the industrial revolution or after industrial revolution the economic depression also because of what? Overproduction. This led to cheap mass production. Kan jenneef isa kanaadha. The second main economic, political and social consequence of industrial revolution mean it made agricultural sector of advanced country less dominant. Okay, so during the feudalism, agriculture was a dominant economic system or sector in European history, world history. But because of the industrial revolution, agriculture sector became less dominant, especially in advanced countries. Because of the agriculture kuni dinagdee dominate godhu kanarraa gara warshaatti ce'a waan ta'eef because during that period the people transferred to other sectors of economy and investment and the production in other sector increased. Kanaaf namni gara mittiidha gara qonnarraa gara warshaatti waan ce'eef the dominance of agriculture decreased now. This means the second socio-economic factor of or consequence of industrial revolution. Second Adam, kanaaf yeroo sana keessatti the percentage of population living in rural areas and engaged in agriculture decreased. Namni baadiyyaa jiraatu, namni qonna gubbaatti hirmaatu xiqqaachaa deeme. That means because in the towns or cities, the factories also somewhat planted or developed. So human beings, especially the society, European society, began to migrate from rural area to urban center to get a job in the factories. So this led to about the percentage of population living in rural areas and engaged in agriculture decreased after industrial revolution. This indicates the social and economic consequence of industrial revolution. However, agriculture productivity increased. Haata'u malee hangi oomisha maaltaa deeme dabalaa deeme because of different reasons. Why? Because agriculture could support larger urban population and more people who were not engaged in agriculture. Why? The productivity in agriculture increased. Sababiin isaa maaliifi namni qonni kun ammayyaa waan ta'eef namni itti hirmaatu hammi baadiyyaa jiraatu xiqqaateera. Agriculture yookiin immoo agriculture productivity immoo hin hir'anne. Kun maal agarsiisaa? The positive outcome of industrial revolution in agricultural sector. This one is the most important one. So, how agriculture, the number of people living in the rural area who engage in agriculture decreased, but the agricultural productivity increased. How? some is a mine. Maisa kanafi, because agricultural productivity has increased in advanced countries because of spread of better method of agriculture. Toko, because of industrial revolution, putting it like the warshaw capitalism in the Malaman they began to use better mode of agriculture. If I don't in the Cambram, they began to use artificial fertilizers and pesticides. Para haramang tajenung kanan, kasmas mo kawan faida mo yel kawan tef agricultural productivity increased, even though the number of people who engage in agriculture decreased. A person who live in urban areas, living in urban rural areas decreased, but agricultural productivity increased because of the better method of agriculture used. Again, artificial fertilizers and pesticide also highly used during that period. This is laid about agriculture, but industrial revolution led to agriculture became less dominant in advanced countries. This is an accelerated shift from countryside to towns and cities. Ini kan industrial revolution ini malah namanya magalar negara badia di kota anu jadi kami. In the sake of what to get a job in factories. So the study socio-economic and the political fact in consequence of industrial revolution mean accelerated shift from countryside to towns and cities. Okay, so more productive agriculture could fit what this larger urban population. Karena aku nama magala jira tu nyata berbeda. Kaisang pun mogara kamna kaji garam badia garam magala tu jiwa baca dia population expanded rapidly in Britain and as industrialized countries of the West. Kesayu nano Britain it, nano gara biyota gudatan it, namni magala jira tu Malta dia dabala dia. Algo tu dah wajib berbaca garam magala dia. One day, so industrial revolution dia tu. The acceleration of what? Shift from countryside to towns and the cities. Kanaf sa kanarang, kanaf, hindi kambaram just follows consequence of political and social consequence of industrial revolution mean any class system developed. Kanaf, amatong de famiram, new class system developed. Isang kun waradang makotaan. Kanaf, isang kun bakalamatikuran, sa puryosi, and the proletariat. So society divided into two. Warren was written to Makotan, at the top, we can get the bourgeoisie, the factory owners, the Karabratim, under the proletariat, Kanjal Kamal the working class were Yendera. Kanafi, the industrial revolution led to the formation of two antagonistic social classes. A new class bourgeoisie in the 19th century, the bourgeoisie became economically and politically dominant class, replacing the centuries-long domination of land-owning nobility. And politically, European politics was dominated by the landlords or the nobilities before industrial revolution, not replaced by the bourgeoisie class or the factory owners. This indicates society divided into two social classes under the bourgeoisie. There were also proletariat. Proletariat means working class. They had nothing. Isang kumalkabun, saan ko pabubulatan ni Warajatan. So, proletariat means they are always being wage workers, but they were now more unwise and aware, more and more concentrated in large factories, especially in towns and the cities. Sa jirato, warsha ke sa jirato. Nagala ke sa jirato. Okay mo, warsha ke sa jirato. Kanaf, the political, economic, socio-economic consequence of the industrial revolution, the forcing new class system developed. The bourgeoisie and the proletariat, some consequences as industrial proletariat became more conscious of it is as class and more conscious that is interested with different form and antagonistic to those of the bourgeoisie. Falla wali tawdeman. Kuma da makademan, working class falla war bourgeoisie tawdeman. One tef kana industrial proletariat to provide mass base for new doctrines of socialism. Kana society bakala matiga fakoda mo politically new doctrine also emerged. That doctrine called socialism, which was supported by Karl Marx and others. Kanafi the support for working class political parties also emerged, especially the Workers' Party emerged in different parts of industrialized nation because of society divided in total. The working class, proletariat, this led to the formation of new doctrines. That new doctrine mean, in other words, called socialism. Socialism mean emerged. This one, what we can say is the outcome of industrial revolution. So, working class political parties with socialist programs, government, and the ruling class were alarmed by the growth of socialism in the 19th century, including Ethiopia. The socialism, or what we can socialism or communism, developed because of the formation of two social classes with the development of the industrial revolution in the 19th century. Kanaaf walumaa galatti societiin kun bakka lamatti qoodame social consequence qaba. Political consequence immoo new doctrine under political party socialism hundaa'uu isaati. Kanaaf new political government with new program emerged in industrialized nation or developed countries. This means the political social consequence of the revolution. The fifth increase national wealth. National wealth, walumaa galatti dinagdee warra industrialized nation, including Britain and America, qabeenya isaanii akka sirriitti guddatuuf gahee guddaa taphateera. Kanaaf the industry, technology, science were applied to armies and navies. Kanaaf warri kun immoo gaafa qabeenya isaanii guddachaa deemu qabeenya argatan kana industirii, teeknooloojii, saayinsii kana garamitti dabarsaa deemanii gara waraana keessattidhaa fi humna galaanarraa ijaarrachuutti deeman waan ta'eef this means that the already existing gap in power between Western state and non-Western state became bigger than ever before. The Western state in industrialized nation, non-Western state in non-industrialized nation. Kanaaf gaappiin guddaan political consequence guddaa isa kana waan ta'eef walagalatti kana fakkaata. The sixth consequence of industrial revolution, the political social consequence, irratti kan ilaalaa jirru colonization of imperialism. Imperialism or colonization mean the outcome of industrial revolution. Why was the development of industrial revolution? Europeans, especially industrialized nation, began to search new areas for investment as well as for raw material and the marketplaces. So this led to imperialism of the 19th century. So the growth of industrial and expansion of Western economy in general and meant that the Western state became more interested in non-Western areas of the world than before. Why? A source of raw material. Kanafi, colonialism can do maal value with the interest of Europeans for source of raw material and as a marketplace, especially for export and the potential market argachuudha. Kanaaf industry isaanii guddachaa deemeera. Amma jarreen kun maal barbaadu? Source of raw material barbaadu. Source of raw material mean which used as input in their industry, developed industries or factories. After production, we have also the nature of industrial revolution mean high production, overproduction genera. For the overproduction, they also began to search new areas for what? For marketplace. To export the manufactured goods into non-Western countries. Because of this, the outcome of industrial revolution also led to the beginning of imperialism of the 19th century. Kanaaf colonization kan jalqabe fedhii warra Europeanota waan lamaaf isaan qabanidha. Raw material yookiin immoo lafa source of raw material meeshaa dheedhii argachuuf kan fedhii isaan qaban bakka gabaa isaaniitti meeshaa isaanii gurguratan lafa isaan barbaadan waan ta'eef this indicate about the colonization means outcome of industrial revolution. Sajaffan kana fakkaatan torbaffan finidhuma improvement in transportation and communication. The outcome of industrial revolution. Kanaaf social and economic consequence as well as political consequence irratti maal argamna? Steam, ship, railway and electric as well as telegraph of 1850 improved transport and the communication that tied the world more closely together than ever before. So industrial revolution also led to improvement in transport and communications. Transport and communication was the outcome of industrial revolution. Steam engine argamira jennaan, general railway constructed, as well as electric power that are all invented, as well as telegraph and others. This indicate improved transportation and communication. in the world. So for that, from the third quarter of the 19th century, gara Pasargafam, gara Umarra, gara Kura Sadet, Torbata Shani, Tawasani Bordet, the third quarter of the 19th century, Kanjanu Kanaram, the world became increasingly one of the single integrated capitalist world economy. This means the Industrial Revolution. Finally, Industrial Revolution made economic, social, cultural changes faster than ever before, so that the change become the norm. Kanafi, adunya kana Industrial Revolution yung kun, social change kabam with federal, economic change, cultural change faster than ever before. Sanandula kanjuruketi, bagi for yesera one day, sa kana fagkadam. Kanaf party 1 kana fagkadam, party 2 keessatti moosini qodee kan yaadu and the development of capitalism and the nationalism from 1850 to 1940. Party 2 nationalism and unification of Italy and the Germany will get under party 2. Party later kana one day kana bring to the Kenya kube academy maatiin taane subscribe gochuudhaan maatii ta'a warra maatii kube academy taatan video kana share comment gochuudhaan ijoollota Oromiyaa keessa jiraatan afaan kana kan dhagaan bira akka ga'uuf ga'ee keessan taphattaa isiniin jenna. Yeroo barnootaa gaarii, yeroo walitti deebinutti nagaan turaa. Thank you.